All right, guys, welcome back to the Savage Boston podcast. I'm Scott, your host from Savage Boston Sports, here with my friend Brett. Here to bring some entertainment, some Boston sports joy to you in the dead of the summer. Honestly, like as we all know, it's still kind of dead time unless you're like a massive Red Sox guy. This is kind of dead time for us. Obviously, waiting for the Patriots to kick on. It's been entertaining to watch Red Sox a bit, but yeah, we're kind of waiting. We got it's July 8th, and we're waiting for training camp, which kicks off on July 23rd. So a couple more weeks to go. I just want to lead off today. What I love and seeing is that we got Stefon Diggs spending some time in the offseason hanging out with a lot of other members of the offense. So I love seeing him with Drake Maye, Ramondre Stevenson, Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne. It looks like Kyle Williams. They're all there hanging out. Like, again, they don't have to be there. Like, Stefon Diggs does not have to be there. And I'm really impressed, honestly. And I think that's something where I didn't think that would happen. I didn't expect that. He's been touring the world with Cardi B. So Brett, let me ask you then to kick it off. Kind of, what's your initial take on seeing Stefon Diggs? Kind of what feels like putting in that extra effort.
Well, I think what's great about it is he's really connecting with the players and trying to build that bond. And, here's the reality, right? You hear the reports that came out of the Texans, and they basically all talked about how they love the guy. And then you watch him in camp
Yeah.
this offseason and how he's interacting with the players, and they all seem to love the guy. So, um, obviously, a good sign. I obviously like seeing the offense of crew basically get together, and it shows May's, I think, leadership and the fact that these guys are all rallying around him to try and get better. So those are all positive things because they got to build chemistry, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about it before. They're learning a new offense, and some of them have never been in this offense before. Like a guy like Bourne has been in this offense, has a little bit of awareness, but like Diggs has never been in this offense. May's never gone through this part. So, this is going to be good for these guys to build that sort of camaraderie, obviously from a team perspective, but also just getting in sync. And it's fun to watch them throw those connection passes, or you had that video
Fade
of
at the back of the end zone.
yeah, you have that video of May out in the water on a paddle boat throwing a pass to Ramondre on a Sea-Doo, all fun stuff, right? That's the
Yeah.
stuff that you sit there and say, when those guys get to the days when actual season matters, they have that relationship build, it could translate. But I like seeing a guy like Diggs come in and really kind of get into the team a lot, and it seems like he's making the right connections. And that wide receiver room needs a leader. They need someone to kind of lead by example. And if Diggs could be that guy, then Diggs could be that guy.
I mean, you play the game of like people might do this on a radio show or something like big deal, no big deal. I forget who showed us that, but in this context, I kind of feel like it's a big deal, and it's all we got right now. I understand that from a Patriots perspective, but again, it's something where like he was missing from a lot of the offseason activity for a while, and I'm sure that was all we knew about that. We had the weird pink drug story, which was the biggest story like on in the world at one point for like a
Just
hot
a
minute.
just being a dare officer, that's all.
Yeah, he was just looking out for the other patrons on the boat and saying
Yeah,
like no one touched this substance. I
yeah.
appreciate his vigilance, but I'd say big deal. Like I think it is a big deal. Like he's showing up. He doesn't have to be there. Dude's got his own YouTube. Like all these guys are multimedia marketers now, right? They got like their own YouTube channels and clothing lines, and he's dating Cardi B. So for him to come down and grind out a weekend and some routes and throw passes from Drake. Again, he doesn't have to be there. I think that's a big deal. Do you feel like that falls in the big deal category?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the guy doesn't have to do it, right? He can check
No.
out if he wants to, but he's buying in. And that's what you need, right? And you look at Vrabel, he's turned over the leadership on the Patriots, really essentially anyone that was a former Belichick guy. And he's trying to change the culture there. And if you get a guy like Diggs coming in there with a reputation that's not always fitting there, who's buying in early, like hopefully it lasts, but we'll see. It's still it's promising signs, right? It's trending in the right directions. It's the kind of thing that he doesn't have to do. You don't see every player do it, but he's doing it, and it's obviously a good sign. And take
Yeah.
take an example of what Vrabel said recently when he was talking about, this offseason. He basically said, the next 5 weeks are the most important to kind of lead up to where they're at and essentially seeing what guys look like when they come back from kind of a break. And it's good to see Diggs out there, right there in the mix of it, working out.
Now, have you seen new pictures of Ramondre Stevenson yet?
I saw him. He looks thinner. Like he's lost a
Yeah,
little
like
bit of weight. Yeah.
I think he's lost like 20 pounds or so. He looks like he's probably about 220, not 240. But
Yeah.
like, is that, yeah, he's going to be a little more athletic, a little more, I don't know, maybe more versatile. But does that kind of go against what you think Ramondre is about? Like, he's supposed to be a bruising back? Like, or, is this just turning over a new leaf? Let me get in shape. Like, how do we view this? Because I kind of, we the back room's getting a little crowded. And do I think Mondre is going to get cut? No, but there's a smidge of redundancy if he's going to just be Antonio Gibson. So I don't know. How are you feeling about Ramondre right now?
Well, I think he's not that thin, so I do think he's still
No,
going to
no,
be
but
a
he's thinner. He's thinner.
yeah. So I mean, at the end of the, it's going to come down to he's well. We'll see what we get to see when he gets back into camp and where it's at. I think his contract's relatively favorable, so if Vrabel likes him, I could see him staying. But at the same time, to your point, like there are a lot of guys in the running back room, and I think we're all on board with Henderson. So I think it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, okay, well, Gibson, Ramondre, those are solid, and then what do you do with some of these kind of camp guys and see if any of them make the roster? So I mean, we'll see. I haven't seen any signs that tells me that Vrabel doesn't like the guy or that the guy is not going to produce. But I mean, he should feel pressure because he's not
Yeah.
looked good the last 2 seasons. So he
Yeah.
should feel the pressure. And maybe he decided to lean up a little bit because he felt like he wasn't able to, be as explosive. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, couldn't hang. I mean, I feel like at this point though, like I don't really want to see another meme. I know everyone there out there is like hungry for content. Obviously, I'm always hungry for a good story, but like it sucks to force it. But like, I don't need another Efton Chisholm or Lane Larison story right now. And it's fine. I get it's already like a fun talking point and a fun story, but like they gotta put on the pads. You have to put on the like if Efton Chisholm goes out in camp and is week one a favorite target of Drake's, hype train. Like I'm all about it. Hype it up. He'll probably make the roster, honestly. But he might not stand out in pads, and you just don't know what it is. Like, will he? Like, let's see. But it's too early now, and there's still been some memes or people talking about again Land Larison. What have we seen from Land Larison that deserves some sort of hype right now? Like, like one thing other than like a cool catch on a highlight tape. Like, what have we seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's the look, right? That's what people like is the feel of the freaking look, which is just
Working
stupid.
class white man.
It's just stupid. That's what we look for, I guess. I don't know. Um, but I mean, that's a perfect example of something where I look at and it's just a guy in camp and they're looking for something flashy, something that pops with it. But it's not going to really, we're not going to see that elevated until they come back and they get into the off season to really see what happens. And then you'll get to see what he looks at in reps, what kind of like what team reps are he getting? Is he doing anything in joint practices when those start? And
Mm-hmm.
essentially we would know if this guy is gonna start to trend in the direction of saying, yeah, he could potentially put pressure and make the roster, or is he not? But this is
Yeah,
just an example of we're hungry for guys, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of top line talent. We actually have very little top line talent.
yeah. On
So
offense, on offense.
it's like one of those things we're just kind of clinging, hoping that we're going to get something that pops. Whereas, in years past, a guy like Land Larison that was like on the Patriots would have never even like hit the newsreels because we have top guys in front of them that were like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah. You're like Corey Dillon, or you had James White, or even like Deion Lewis or something. Like they had a slew of excellent scat backs. Like Travion Henderson would have fit right in.
Hmm.
Excited for that. Um, but yeah, no, I think we just got to wait and see. You got to put the pads on. That's how it goes. And I mean, I'm obviously, I think the offense, like, is it, I think Phil Perry had their offensive skill player rank at 31 in the league out of 32, that's rough, but I didn't think it was crazy unfair. Crazy unfair. I could have seen maybe a little higher. And he had their O line ranked at 24 out of 32. And I'm actually still surprised that the O line kind of even crept up that high because I don't feel like it's
Yeah.
that improved, but it is improved.
Well, I
So
was
I don't know.
just
How do
gonna
you feel about
say,
those kind of the skill position rankings at 31 out of 32 from Phil
yeah.
Perry?
So first time hearing that one, and I'm sitting here making faces, being like, "Well, I don't know about that one." Honestly, I think O line 24 seems high because you're right. We didn't make
Yeah.
substantial improvements.
It was
Like,
also so bad last year that like it couldn't have been worse. Literally, like it was
yeah,
horrific. Man.
but again, you got to look at it. I mean, it's a new year, but it's essentially what does our O line depth look like, and how does it stack up against the other 31 teams in the league? And it's like, I don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get with Will Campbell, and I mean that's going to be the biggest question mark about that 24 ranking and how that fits. So to me, that seems high, and the skill position seems low. Like I feel like okay, I understand like Diggs is like 31 coming back from an ACL injury. Like we'll see what we get from the guy, but he's I mean, he's been 1,000-yard producer every season other than last year when he basically blew out his ACL. So I'd expect him to do like I don't think he's going to be elite top one, but like I think he's going to do respectable numbers. I
Yeah,
still think Henry's a respectable tight end. Like
yeah.
I think our running backs, while they're not elite, I mean they're pretty
I think they're a
solid
decent unit.
throughout. So
Yeah.
I think we got some depth there, and what we're looking at, and yeah, I mean our wide receiver room outside of Diggs is essentially a bunch of threes. So I think that's obviously where we take the biggest hit, but as a grouping for skilled positions, like I don't know, 31 seems pretty bad. I feel
I
like
mean, if you
I'd have to
know
go through
who,
some rosters, but I feel like we'd have to
yeah,
be
it's
better
that's
than some
pretty
of these
bad.
people.
I mean, he did. I read the list, and it's like it's kind of it's not that off his take. But I basically, I saw Greg Bedard had this quote, this take the other day when he was talking about if the Patriots had a number one wide receiver option open up via trade that like Steph Diggs. And he said this was like a very low, long shot, but he still threw it out there. I don't know why throw it out there if it's such a long shot, but he's like, they could maybe trade Diggs and then get a wide receiver like Terry McLaurin for Diggs, something like that. And to me, that's like a little too lateral, especially if Diggs is under a really good contract right now. But like I don't know why'd he throw that out. He also implied they weren't happy with him, and I don't think that's true. I mean, I've heard Zolak talk about recently how he thinks the team is just fine with Diggs right now. Maybe they weren't happy with him after the pink drug stuff, but as of now, like I don't know. I would love to have some sort of trade scenario with Terry McLaurin and figure out a way to get a disgruntled wide receiver who's excellent out of that situation. I don't know how to make that happen, but certainly would not trade Stefon Diggs right now. That's my opinion.
Like you said, it's kind of a lateral. I don't know if you gain anything, it's not substantial. I mean, McLaurin, less injury prone, equal output, right? I mean, it's kind of he is one of like the most underrated like top wide receivers in the league. I mean, the guy just produces year in year
He's
out.
great.
And think
Yeah,
about like his quarterbacks have not been consistent, right? So you look at that and you're like, the guy's just a professional and a stud, and I would love for them to go get him.
yeah.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, there's so much like it's just kind of crazy how they haven't signed him, how they haven't figured this thing out, so that he's lingering out there. There's like a sliver of hope for me
It
that
keeps leaking out though. Like every week, you got like Jeremy Fowler. Like you have someone's like Terry McLaurin's not really happy. It's like every week. Like I don't know how they let it get to this point. Like I get it. Nobody wants to fucking pay people somehow. It's a league where they have it feels like infinite money, and McLaurin's going to demand cash. So it's like you're scared of diminishing return for a 30-year-old wide receiver, and you want to commit $30 million a year to a 30-year-old wide receiver. I understand that, but he's too important to the Commanders. Like I don't
Oh yeah.
get. I know their fan base is mad. Like he's too important, and if they lose that player and Jaden Daniels, number one guy, I don't really know. It's tough pill to swallow from a Commanders fan perspective.
Oh yeah, I'd be bullshit because I mean they're knocking on the door
Yeah,
of getting into the Super Bowl, right? So they're trying to get over the hump. The last thing you'd want to do is lose your number one targeted wide receiver, and you're outside of Jaden Daniels being kind of a dual threat quarterback, and he's your most explosive offensive player on that roster. So you can't afford to lose a guy like that, which is why I would love for us to pick him up. And when it comes to money, I mean, clearly we're the ones that are most suited to assign that guy
oh
and
yeah,
get something up. So like, and I also look at it, and I'm just saying to myself, and I know we talked about this before, but teams overvalue draft picks like
yeah.
insane in my opinion. That I look at it, I'm just like, okay, offer them a two next year. Like offer them and you'd probably get it done. This kind of a guy, when he's this disgruntled, goes for like a five or a six. And I'm sitting there going to myself, like, I don't even know what possesses a team to basically trade that guy and do that
He's
other
too
than the fact that
valuable for that, though. Like it couldn't be that, but I agree with you. I think a guy in the final year of the contract who's like aging but an excellent player usually is about a third round draft pick. Like I would think, like either Matthew Judon. If you have someone who's going into a contract year but is a little younger, more explosive, you could use the framework of the DK Metcalf contract. I don't want. I got in a bit of a tissy, and this guy, Lift Shats, who's on 98.5, is all over Twitter. He was arguing a lot the other day about he didn't want to trade for McLaurin, and I was like, he's like trading a second and Booty was too much for McLaurin, and I was like, it doesn't feel that way to me. Especially a second next year is going to be a middle. Hopefully, it should be like a mid-round draft pick, like 15 to 20, something like that, or if you make the playoffs. But he was not for it, and he even commented something like, about that trade. Too many asses. Like, listen, we have the framework right here. DK Metcalf, he's probably a little bit younger. Um, just was traded. I think it was 52 overall. You'd have to look it up, but it was traded to the Steelers for a second round draft pick. I believe it was 52 overall. And it was like a pick swap, and they got like a late round pick, something like that, which means virtually nothing. But they got DK Metcalf for a second on a contract that was running through 2025, and then boom, then they hit him with like a 5-year, $150 million contract, something like that. Like so, they hammered him, gave him big money, but that's the framework if you want to make a trade for a guy who's perceived as a really great option. And to be fair, Terry McLaurin probably a better pure wide receiver than DK Metcalf. DK
yeah.
Metcalf, freak show. I get it. Like he can run fast, run straight, but like I think Terry McLaurin's is just a fantastic player. But so yeah, so long story short, I think the framework's there. If you want to make a deal, the value's there. You're gonna have to give them. Like they would probably wouldn't take a third, but if you give up a second and Booty, are you gonna do that deal?
Yeah, I mean, I just said a second I would do it, and I would have done a
Yeah,
second this past year, which would have been higher than 52 that Pittsburgh gave him to get DK. Again,
you
like
just gotta get the talent there.
I just look at it across the board. I'm just like, we constantly look at these draft picks, and it comes down to money, and they're like, we're gonna outsmart them. But the reality is like money is not the problem right now. The problem is we don't have
Yeah,
enough talent. We have
yeah.
money to put at these guys. We tried to throw money at guys in the offseason and they chose not to sign with us. So money's not the problem. And when it looks at it, you go, okay, well, yeah, draft capital is still draft capital. But like if you can get a proven guy like Terry McLaurin, who has been pretty much healthy his whole career, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get that guy in there who just produces year after year after year, like you just elevated your 31 ranked, offense that Phil Perry's telling you all the way up to like probably the teens.
Yeah, no,
Because
that would be. I mean, if your top billing is McLaurin, Diggs, and Kyle Williams and Pop Douglas or something like that, like I don't know, it's Kyle Williams. Your four to me is like great, and then Pop in the slot, like all of a sudden you got like a pretty fantastic set of weapons, and you'd still have a problem on the offensive line. Not to be negative, but they still have an issue on the offensive line. I'd love for them to make a trade for a player in the O line, or maybe someone gets cut because their salary is too high during camp, and you got to swoop them up big time. But I'm hoping, like people have mentioned this too, like I'm not sure their left guards on the roster. And I figured if it was Doug we were talking to, Kide from the Herald, they're like, there's flexibility still coming. There's things still coming. Like this roster is not set. I think they need, hopefully Jared Wilson can maybe come in, the rookie from Georgia, and play center. But the left guard might not be on the roster. There's no one jumping out. They don't like City So or Layden Robinson right now. They haven't popped out. They had like Tyrese Robinson on left guard. Cole Strange is in the mix. It's not a set crew. And you got a 34-year-old right tackle who could get injured, right? And has been injured. So there's some concern there. And we have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, but I mean, the best thing to aid an offensive line like that is going to be, quick ride receivers that can get open, like a Terry
That
McLaurin
helps.
and a Stefon Diggs. So you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
protecting the quarterback for 5 seconds. You can get them down in 3 second release, right? So no, I mean, if I was Washington fan, I'd be pissed about Terry McLaurin because you're right there on the edge. As a Patriots fan, I would fucking love if they could somehow pull it off, and
Yeah.
if it only cost us a two and booty, and then we sign and extend him. Like I don't see what's the loss there. So I have no idea what some guy like Lipschatz is thinking in that regards, and I just don't. I don't see why you wouldn't go out there and get a guy like that if you could, and then like you said, we'll see what happens in the offseason. You typically get some vet guys that get cut kind of later
Mm-hmm.
on, and then they kind of pick up elsewhere. The only challenge that happens in that situation is a lot of those guys typically go to contenders. They don't as much go to, you know, another team that's going to pay top dollar. And I don't know if we would.
You'd have to trade. I mean, you have to trade for him and have him agree, right? So it's a
Yeah.
trade. So he'd have a little bit of say because he could just say like, "I'm not signing an extension with you," and then vis-a-vis, we don't trade for him, right? So like so he has a little bit of control over that regard. So he
Hmm.
can't just like with DK. DK is like, "I'm not signing an extension in New England."
Yeah.
So we're like, well, I guess we can't trade for DK, right? And so he has some control, but in reality, he just is upset about getting money, right? So it's like it's not like Godwin who came out. We're like, nah, let's pay Godwin, pay him 30 mil, and then he gets like 22 million, and he took that to stay in Florida, right? He wouldn't take our 30 million. So it's not like that, like McLaurin, but because he stayed because he didn't value the money like that. McLaurin, I think, wants to be appreciated and paid. That's what's clear. He's not happy about his contract. This is a pure contract dispute, which
Yeah.
sucks. And it sucks for the fan base. And like, I don't know how tight they are to the cap, but you can free cap up. Go to one of those players. Like, also, they shouldn't be fucking around. You have Jaden Daniels on his rookie contract. You just made the NFC Championship. Like, why are you fucking around with that team?
Yeah. I mean, it's money. They're tied up against it.
It's poorly managed franchise.
Yeah, that too. But I can't. I'm looking forward to like DK basically squabbling in Pittsburgh because I mean I just don't see that panning out at all. I think that's just another train wreck waiting to happen. And have fun, buddy.
What a weird team. I mean, what a weird team. I'll go to that game, Pittsburgh week 3. Weird
Yeah,
team. I don't know, Rodgers and that whole dynamic, and with DK, and then they still got the Pittsburgh defense, which gives them a shot every game. But like, it feels like that offense is going to be weird,
yeah,
and inevitably something's going to blow up. Someone's going to have a problem. Like watching Rodgers, I don't get how if you're Pittsburgh, you watch Rodgers with the Jets for a couple years be heinous. And like he improved at the end, but really like disruption, pure disruption of that
yeah.
franchise. And you're like, that's our quarterback.
All our eggs in that basket too. like, like
They have
just
no
all
one
in.
else. And he's going to retire after this year. Like they have to draft a quarterback now. And to be fair, coming up next year, it's a better quarterback class. They are
Yeah,
if
but
they really should tank. I know they're not going to, but like they should tank. And there are good QBs. And I don't know if Arch Manning is going to come out. He might wait another year. But there are some. I don't want to necessarily look the deep dive 2026 NFL draft already because
for
we'd be
Pittsburgh
to do that without
Steelers.
Snooty here would be almost
Well, I
blasphemous.
well, I love how we're diverting into like a Pittsburgh Steeler 2026 draft prospects, but the reality is like they're like you just said like oh they should tank to try and get the guy, but I'm like they just put in Rodgers, so
I know they can't.
they'll probably be a middling team.
They'll be like 9-8.
Yeah, they're gonna probably have like pick number 15 or 14 or something like that, and they're not gonna get the guy. No, they're a dumb franchise for doing it. but they love to
Yeah.
middle. That's their
Yeah.
way. Whereas
Um,
I'm good with the reset, and I like the direction we're going.
but again, to be fair to them, and again, this is not too bad of a deep dive, but in 2026, I don't necessarily think Arch Manning's going to come out. I think he's going to wait another year and have 2 full years at Texas. But like Garrett Nussmeier, Clade Kubnik, Lenora Sellers, Drew Allar, Nico Iamaliva, Sam Levitt, Carson Beck. Basically, it's way, as of we think right now, way better than what this past draft was.
Yeah.
Right, this past drive with Shadur, like Cam Ward, I think is legit, but like the Shadur thing was insane, and like some of these QBs fall, like Tyler Shuck. Let's see how that goes. New Orleans, like it could be a disaster. I think next
Mhm.
year's class is going to be another very good class, like Drake Maye, Caleb, and Jaden. Like 20, I think 2020 with Jordan Love and that crew. So
It could be, but I just don't see Pittsburgh being in the mix for any of those
they'll
guys.
just
I
miss out
just
on like the top one no matter what.
I'm just happy we got fucking Drake May.
The Steelers.
I'm really looking forward to it because like the other thing like I keep looking back on is like just how shitty of a position that dude was in on this team and he still like made things happen. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's so
You got to see
reassuring.
the leap forward this year, though. You got to see the leap. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like this is the year two growth, and what does that look like? But the guy just what I saw last year is he was a playmaker who just had a knack for trying to find winning plays. Now,
Yeah,
unfortunately, it didn't produce into wins because the team sucked. But
yeah.
like, I mean, he competed and he raised the competition level of the team, and they all kind of raised with it. So,
I hate
um,
that argument. This has been so stupid. People have said because May went like 1-9, 1-9 or
oh, I
something.
know.
Like they're using that against him. They're like, well, Brady's first year, he won the Super Bowl. Like in first, that was the second year in the league. Second, you had Bill Belichick with multiple Hall of Famers on his defense and a much better roster, and they added a lot. It was a better, way better roster than what May had with Mayo. So there's just no comparison to Bill Belichick and Gerard Mayo in terms of coaching. It's such a fucking laughable comparison between those two teams. You can't be made.
Well,
So
I think what's happened is there's enough people like us, right, that are just kind of anointing the guy as being the next big thing, the next
yeah,
franchise guy.
yeah.
When in reality, no, he hasn't proved it. But I just think we're not overstating when I like what I just said is not an overstatement. The team was like abysmal. They had no depth on the team, and he still found a way to produce and make winning plays. The problem
Yeah.
is it didn't result in wins, which is where people just point to right away and say, "Well, if he made so many winning plays, why didn't he win more games? Why didn't he? The offense didn't get that much better with him than when they were playing with Brissett." And I'm like, just use the eye test. Like that's all you got to do is use the eye test and tell you where
Yeah.
it's at. So no, it's just people playing devil's advocate, and it's just an easy out when they kind of do that, which I always love when we're able to prove them wrong, which I'm hoping our boy May does. He's got to prove those
You
haters
know,
wrong.
honestly, it's so much of this season and the future of the Patriots just hinges on his development. And I think you just have to believe in the kid and believe in the coaching and McDaniels to help develop him. And I think he will. And I don't know the expectations this year. I don't have any amazing expectations that he's going to put together some Pro Bowl season, like, or, not fake Pro Bowl, like real Pro Bowl season, not like the seventh edition, or like have 30 TDs and seven. Like, I don't have any crazy statistical goals. I know people want to come up with stuff. I just want to see him be better, turn over the ball less, and run an offense and have a continuous offense. One of the problems with watching Mac Jones for those couple of years is it always seems like he couldn't do it when it counted. He would drive a little, sputter out. They couldn't score. And then at the end, he was an absolute disaster. But before he was a disaster, he just had critical mistakes all the time. Like Mac Jones stopped being able to play well, and he didn't have the tools. Drake's got the tools. He's got every freaking tool. He's got the whole box of tools. He can do anything. He can throw on the run. He's got so much more talent than Mac Jones. But it's just stop making turnover worthy plays as much as
Yeah.
possible. Run the offense. use the weapons you do have. Again, Travion Henderson is going to be a weapon this year on third down. That dude is explosive. He's going to be a great third down back. I'm crazy high on him, more than probably any other draft pick. So I think there's just a lot here, and we just need to have Drake leap forward into that second year. And then maybe by year 4, you're looking at a dynamic, excellent quarterback, top 5. Like, that's the trajectory you need. But he's got to grow. He's 21 years old. So
Yeah, this year I think it's going to come down to the turnovers and like not turning the ball over in critical spots, because that's an area. I mean, and that's been the knock on the guy from a bit, like from the start, right? I mean, everyone basically kind of used the Allen comparison when you talk about Drake May, and basically Drake May's ceiling would be a Josh Allen, MVP caliber, which would be fucking amazing. But early on in Josh Allen's career, it was turnovers. And you look at a guy like Drake May, you look at how he did last year, it was turnovers. That being said, I also look at it and say the guy was trying to make plays in shitty spots because they were put in shitty spots. So some of those turnovers aren't on him. And then we talk about some of the turnovers he's had in this camp, and like people jumped on them early when he threw those like 4 picks. And it's like, well, sometimes you have a guy like Christian Gonzalez making, a play because he's an all pro caliber cornerback who's just going to make a play. Like, and maybe Drake's out there trying something out where he's throwing a ball that normally in a game he wouldn't throw. So I'm a little bit. That's the one area I want to see to make sure it's there. But I look at where we're at historically with him on that, and I'm a little bit kind of like, I don't see it as much of a problem as other people see it. But at the end of the day, I think that's going to be the telltale sign this season is, can he protect the ball? Can he not turn it over and make dumb plays with it?
and Josh Allen in his second season, people got to go back and look at the stats, but he was not a world burner. And not every quarterback develops into Josh Allen, but when you got all the tools like Drake does, and Josh obviously, has ridiculous tools. Josh Allen, to me, is the other than Lamar Jackson, right? He's the best quarterback in the league. He does everything for that offense and carries. I think people argued that's why Josh won the MVP, right? As people argued, Lamar just has a lot more around him, which is kind of true. Lamar's got a really good team, a lot of talent, and throughout that roster. And so I think Josh just carries that franchise. Without him, I mean, that he is the franchise. And to be fair, maybe so is Lamar. And that's why they're great players. So anyway, we're hoping for Drake to develop. I'm going to cut it here. Quick pod. We'll keep it quick. Be back next week. I don't actually know who's going to be. Brett, are you here next week? I have no idea.
I'll be here.
All right,
Yeah.
Brett will be here next week. Who knows what Snooty's doing, if he's still on vacation in the tropics somewhere, sunbathing in his Speedo. We'll see what Snooty's doing. All right, take it easy, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.